And when we look at the demographics here, are there certain age groups in particular that are of most concern? Are we seeing the problem more acute among First Nations students?
Look, it seems to be more acute in high schools. We don't have any data on year 11 and 12 because in those years it's legal to not attend school, so it isn't sort of measured in a public way. Certainly, I think high school is the biggest problem, but I've spoken to principals who've said in primary school they're getting more kids not wanting to go to school. I've spoken to a mother, she's a lawyer, and she's tearing her hair out because her 6-year-old, well, she was 6, she's now 9, has not gone to school for 3 years because she's very gifted and she's doing year 12 level work, but she also has autism, and so becomes very disruptive when she's bored and she just doesn't fit. And this child is really missing out on an education.
Gosh, anyone who's a parent would understand just how stressful that sort of scenario would be. And it sounds like it is having a worrying impact more broadly on families, with parents divorcing, having to leave their jobs as a result.
Yes, I've spoken to some clinics that deal with this issue who are saying that the stress of trying to get, especially teenagers, to school, and the arguments every morning and every evening, and the pleading and the worrying is putting a huge strain on parents. Now, particularly single parents, they need to work in this time when we've got rising costs of living. They can't throw in their job to stay home all day with the child, so they end up going to work. The child is left sort of unattended. Parents often argue. It's causing huge conflict between parents because they might have different attitudes to dealing with it. And parents are losing their jobs or quitting work, and I've been told that it sometimes even leads to divorce, which is very sad. And one thing I've read from the Queensland Catholic Education Commission, which is very sad, is that some children are staying home because there's domestic violence and they don't want to leave the victim parent alone. Now, this is a societal problem. It's not just a problem for the school system.
Absolutely. And more broadly, for the kids that are actually attending school, have we seen the data show that the fears we all had during the pandemic about the results in terms of literacy and numeracy rates declining, has that played out? Is the data now pretty clear that we have seen a significant drop as a result of kids not being able to go to school for all that time?
Well, the only real data that we have public is the NAPLAN data, which is an annual literacy and numeracy test. It sort of tests the basics, and that shows a great deal of resilience. So that's good, but we don't know, of course, what's happening at a level with other subjects. And a lot of mental health groups are very concerned that students are just so anxious and overwhelmed about schoolwork. I think what schools need to do is to stop trying to funnel every child into an academic pathway, because, when I went to school, it was very common to leave at the end of year 10 and do a trade. So it's very promising that the federal and state and territory governments are now having fee-free TAFE, and hopefully we can get a lot of kids into those other fields which are just as valuable as a career that requires university. I think that we put so much pressure on teenagers these days, and people do not understand the mental health pressures they're facing, particularly with social media and bullying. Bullying is a huge issue. Kids, they're bullied even when they're at home, kids sending nasty messages, etc. And it's easy for adults to rationalise this and say, grow a thick skin, but we're dealing with children, and developmentally they need to be with their friends, they need to play, they need to relax, they need to be creative. And I just think that sometimes you might get a kid who's really artistic, but they fall over because they have to write a long exam about artists, and that's not really their core strength. So I really think we need to be more flexible and ensure that all these children get a really good chance to start out in life.